As Laura mentioned, the ground we're on today was underwater. All of us who are old enough to remember will never forget the images of our fellow Americans amid a sea of misery and ruin. We'll always remember the lives lost across the Gulf Coast. Their memories are in our hearts, and I hope you pray for their families. Hurricane Katrina is a story of loss beyond measure. It's also a story of commitment and compassion. I hope you remember what I remember, that is 30,000 people were saved in the immediate aftermath of the storm by U.S. military personnel, by Louisiana law enforcement, and by citizens who volunteered. I hope you remember what I remember, and that was the thousands who came here on a volunteer basis to provide food for the hungry and to help find shelter for those who had no home to live in. There are people all around our country who prayed for you, many of whom showed up so they could say they helped a fellow citizen who was hurting. One of the groups that stepped forward to serve were the educators of New Orleans. At a time when it had been easy to walk away from the wreckage, the educators here today thought of the children who would be left behind. You understood that bringing New Orleans back to life required getting students back to school. And even though some of the educators had lost almost everything you owned, you let nothing stand in your way. Today, we celebrate the resurgence of New Orleans schools. We honor the resilience of a great American city whose levees gave out, but whose people never gave up. It's the stories of schools like this one and others that we see the determination to rebuild better than before. And it's a spirit much stronger than any storm. It's a spirit that's lifted communities laid low by tornadoes or terrorist attacks. It's a spirit that I saw in New Orleans 10 years ago that is very evident today. We see this spirit in the population that has ticked back up as families settle back down. We see it in the tourists who are drawn here not only by the city's rich heritage, but the new hotel rooms and restaurants. We see it in the spirit in Laura LaDuff. As Lauren mentioned, Laura and I first met her in 2006 when she was a senior here at Easton. She's happy to be back at the school she loved. She was happy to be back at the school she loved at the time. And you know what she told me? She said, "I want to be a teacher." And here she is as a member of this faculty, teaching English. I probably needed her when I was in high school. When asked how students have overcome adversity, Lauren said, "We teach our kids to be resilient. That's in the culture of this city." Lauren's right. The resilience you teach at Warren Easton is the same resilience that this city showed the world in the wake of Hurricane Katrina. On this anniversary, the work of making a stronger and more hopeful New Orleans goes on. You've achieved a lot over the last 10 years. And with belief in success and a faith in God, New Orleans will achieve even more. The darkness from a decade ago has lifted, the Crescent City has risen again, and its best days lie ahead. Thank you for having us.